right through the most recent one we have. Next slide. Comparison of Neanderthal versus hominoid. Look, pretty close. Pretty close. Next slide. Now, the face of Neanderthal. This is what we're told for the most part the Neanderthals were all about. But I put it to you that it's very likely that in fact Neanderthals look more like this guy than they look like that guy. Hominoids. Now, this is the ideology, next slide, that I'm trying to put forth here. Prediction number 4, the fossil record from Neanderthals back through the Australopithecines contains nothing resembling a human. They are the bones of hominoids which will prove to be apes that walked out of the Miocene era. Now, as of right now, I'm probably the only person anywhere saying these things. I'm the only person I know about saying these things I'm saying to you here today. But I believe that if not in my lifetime, in the lifetimes of some of you, or the lifetimes of your children or your grandchildren, in the end, I am going to be right, and every damn one of them is going to be wrong. Every damn one of them is going to be wrong. I believe that. I'm going to go to my grave believing that. And I may see it proved before I die. But I know what we're up against. I'm very aware of what we're up against. We're up against a team, and we're a dysfunctional family. We're going to have to make some major overhauls in the way we approach the way we do business to have a dog's chance to succeed against these folks. They play hardball. We play jacks by comparison. Okay, next slide. I'm now going to take you off the deep end. For as radical as what I have said up to now might seem to you, we're now going to plunge off to the deep end. Because why? If humans are not prehumans, or prehumans are not, don't lead to humans, that they're really hominoids, what are humans? What are we? How do you account for us? The way I account for us is this. Let's go through the lesson real quick. From macro to micro in 5 steps, the human body contains 100 trillion cells. There is a nucleus inside each human cell except blood cells, sperm cells. Each nucleus contains 46 chromosomes arranged in 23 pairs. 1 chromosome of every pair is from each parent. The chromosomes are filled with tightly coiled strands of DNA. Genes are segments of DNA that contain instructions to make proteins the building blocks of life. There will not be a quiz. Just want to kind of go over how it breaks down. Okay, next slide. Targeted gene replacement. This is what we are in the beginning stages of really learning how to do. We're getting pretty good at it, but we've still got a long way to go. But what our guys can do now is take chemicals that will cut through gene segments and splice them out and put other things in there and see what results. And when you get really good at this, you can do virtually anything with any living thing. You can mix and match to your heart's content when you really know what you're doing. We've got some hunters here. Let's just, for example, let's think, what if we wanted to hunt, if we wanted to create something that could really hunt? What would we'd want to create an animal that was really, really fast. So let's model it on a greyhound dog. Really fast, what do they run? About 35 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour. But you got some pronghorn antelopes and things out there that can go 40, 45. So let's boost it. Let's supercharge that sucker. Let's put him up to, let's get a greyhound up to 60 miles an hour. 60 miles an hour. Let's do that by lengthening its spine a little bit and making it extra springy so that his rear feet, when he comes up, they don't hit kind of close to his front feet. They hit way out in front so he can really power along. Now, we got ourselves a fat, but a dog doesn't have a killer instinct, does it? They've got to have a cat's killer instinct. Cats do the killing. So now let's give him a greyhound body, but let's give him a cat mentality to hunt. But at 60 miles an hour, what problem do we have? Turns, high-speed turns. Can't have a cat's feet because you've got those soft pads and retractable claws. We got to keep the dog's feet on there. We got to keep the hard pads and the extended claws. So we got it, but we can do it. We can do anything we want. We mix and match, and we can make ourselves a real great hunting animal that's a mixture of dogs and cats, right? Next slide. Oh, we already have one. We already have one. A cheetah, ladies and gentlemen, will run 60 miles an hour and absolutely overtake anything on the savannah. It is a domesticated cat, it's called. One of the very first domesticated cats. History going way back as hunting animals. And guess what? They are a blend of cats and dogs.
See their fur? The tan part's what you find on a short-haired dog. The black spots are cat fur. See the feet? Dog. See the body? Cat. See the spine? Extended. Stretched out. Lets it run 60 miles an hour. Big heart. Extra lung capacity. Super lungs. High-speed turns. Absolutely a mixture of dogs and cats. Susceptible to diseases that only dogs get, and susceptible to diseases only cats get. More importantly, and perhaps most significantly, they're all clones. Genetically exactly alike. What's that mean? It means cheetahs are a product of genetic engineering. No question. Yet science insists they all came out of a genetic bottleneck of some kind. That's how it's explained. Seriously. A genetic bottleneck. Somehow, all the cheetahs, all the creatures that led to cheetahs, died, except for a very few breeding pairs, somewhere, over the last few thousand years, and they radiated out again to the wide areas they cover now. A bottleneck. A genetic bottleneck. It's the only way to explain something that otherwise is inexplicable. Totally inexplicable. Now, supposedly cheetahs go back millions of years, like everything else, but as far as domestication goes, we know they've been domesticated the last 5,000 years. They were one of the first ones, going back to the Egyptians and Sumerians. Absolutely one of the very first ones. Okay, that covers the cheetah. Now, this slide covers a lot of things. Domestication is one of the great untalked about, unexamined mysteries of the world. That goes for wheat, corn, cattle, goats, sheep, anything, and us. Charles Darwin himself said, when you come down to it, humans are more like domesticated animals than anything else. Now, put that aside for a moment. Here's the story we get for wheat and grain and corn and cows. All domesticated plants and animals, this is what we get. Let's start with grains. Somehow in the Stone Age,
some bright guy, thousands of years ago, 10,000 years ago or more, looks out of his cave one day and says, you know, if we were to go out there and pull up some of that grass or cereal or grain and bring it into our cave and pick through the little seeds that look like pepper flakes, if you've all seen their seeds, pick through and pick out the biggest ones and plant those and task our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren and our great-grandchildren, and for the next couple of thousand years, if everybody keeps doing that same thing, pulling out the biggest seeds, eventually we're going to get big seeds that we can actually deal with. We can actually harvest and eat. And if we get lucky, if we do all of this for a couple thousand years, if we get lucky, maybe some miracle might change the biochemistry of those seeds and turn them in from things that we absolutely cannot use to some kind of a seed that our bodies can use. And furthermore, the way they're designed at the Rachis and Glooms will allow us to harvest them and get them back somewhere and thrash them, and we can get those seeds out. Everything about this has to be changed. And that guy stood there at the front of his cave, and somehow he had this vision, and somehow he was able to pass the word down for hundreds of generations, and everybody did it, and somehow we wake up one day and we have all these things, domesticated plants. Same thing with the animals, looking at the big wild oryx, just a real bad news thing, looking at a wolf and saying, oh yeah, let's bring those in and keep those for several generations and breed the wildness out of them. Yeah, there's going to be some nipped ankles in the cave here for a few generations, but if we stick with it, we're going to get a dog and it'll be really fun. Then we have puppies and it'll be fun. You know? So totally absurd. So totally absurd. When you just think about it for 5 minutes. And yet that is totally bought, paid for, signed, sealed, and delivered by every major botanist that I know of. Nobody says these kinds of things. Nobody that I'm aware of. But yet it's there. A child should be able to see it. And again, so with humans, just like Darwin said, we seem to be like domesticated animals. Next slide. Cerebral cortex comparison. Now, evolution. Rat, if you take the cerebral cortex, which is the outside part of the brain, the outside covering, most closely related to intelligence, this part out here, and you peel it off and you spread it out, of a rat, it's about the size of a postage stamp. Of a monkey, it's about the size of a postcard. Of a chimpanzee, it's about the area of a sheet of typing paper. And for us, it's 4 sheets of typing paper. I submit to you that this is not evolution. This is something happening. This is supposedly our closest genetic relative. Something happened genetically to do this. Something happened. It's clear something happened. That is not evolution. But what? Next slide. Okay, again, I want to remind you, the 12 ways humans are not primates. Bones much thinner and lighter, muscles 5 to 10 times weaker, skin not well adapted to direct sunlight, adipose tissue 10 times as much, body hair missing pattern reversed, head hair, nails must be trimmed, skulls and brains not in the same ballpark, locomotion most obvious difference, speech, throats completely redesigned, we saw that slide, sex, no sign of typical estrous cycles. Now let's focus on these last 2 for a minute. Genetic disorders. We have over 4,000 and counting. 4,000 genetic disorders in our gene pool collectively, meaning you can find these 4,000 genetic disorders from Eskimos to Watusis. We all carry on average about 250. You may have 200, your wife may have 100, but if you two carry the same one, each of your children has a 1 in 4 shot of expressing it. Now, the key to this is simple. In nature, you just don't have that many. Faulty copies are done away with. Faulty products are done away with. Most things breed very true in nature, plants and animals. There are very few. Things like albinism, you'll find that in gorillas and alligators, and but being an albino doesn't kill you. It doesn't really stop you from reproducing, so you can bring that kind of a gene flaw into the gene pool. But we have a couple of dozen that kill you dead before you reach the age of puberty. Whatever. You can't pass it on. There should not be a single one of those spread through the gene pool. Why? Because how did it get there? If it can't be spread through sexual reproduction, what's it doing there? It's there because of genetic manipulation. That's what all 4,000 of them are there for. Genetic manipulation. And mistakes were made and left because whoever was making the manipulations didn't care. Didn't care to get it right. They just were hurrying to get the job done. And so they left. Did they care if they were making something? Did they care if it killed 1 in 10? Did they care if it killed 1 in 100? They don't care. If they're making sentient beings like us, they're doing it for a reason, and they're not doing it for our benefit. They're doing it for their benefit. Same with domesticated plants, same with domesticated animals. We're no different than them. Somebody came here and designed this planet to suit them. And we are a product of that program, whatever that program was. That's what I believe. That's what I would like you to consider as a possibility. Next slide. 3 primates and a human. Remember 3 men and a baby? 3 primates and a human. You have the human, chimp, gorilla, orangutan. And you know, you always hear this from the other side. Well, gee, it's so much the same. It's so much DNA, so much the same. Geez, there's just a little step from them to us. Surely we evolved from them. Surely we did. But you know, we're an awful lot like a mouse too. Awful lot like a rabbit. But we are a lot like other primates. What's the difference? Well, you know, it looks pretty much the same, doesn't it? But there is a difference. They all have 48 chromosomes, and we have 46. Remember, we lost the 2 chromosomes somehow, some way. But guess what? That's an awful lot of DNA. That's an awful lot. How could we be even as close as we are, and we're wildly different from them, but how could we even be as close as we are if we lost 2 whole chromosomes? Guess what? This is the big secret they don't tell you. We didn't lose them. We didn't lose those 2 chromosomes. Guess what? Guess what? Next slide. Somebody fused them. The second one, somebody took number 2 and number 3 on the primates, and in us, fused it together. Why do you suppose they would want to do that? Keep the whole chromosome package there, but turn 2 into 1. Why? What if they wanted to breed us with something that had 46 chromosomes and breed us regularly to them and create an offspring that way? They would have to combine the package and reduce it from 48 to 46 without losing any of the DNA. And that's what they did. That is what they did. Next slide. Prediction number 5. Humans are not native to planet Earth. Along with domesticated plants and animals, we have been genetically engineered by outside intervention for unknown purposes. Now, this is the big one. This is the one you may not want to jump off with. This is what I believe, and this is what I believe is going to be found to be the truth downstream. I don't know how far it'll be, but I think the evidence is jumping out all over the place right now, and nobody wants to look at it because, again, this is going to have to be crammed down some very unwilling throats. But it is the truth, and it will come out. And whether I see it or not, you will remember that you were here tonight and heard me put it out together in this package for the first time. Again, as far as I know, I'm the only person anywhere saying these things, but I believe that I'm right, and I've taken my time, and I've worked on this, and I've worked on it for a very long time, and I think I've got it in the bag. And I offer it to you today as a kind of ideology to maybe start wrapping your minds around and maybe start swinging behind, because if we can start pushing a fuller agenda other than Bigfoot's real, Sasquatch is real, Bigfoot's real, Sasquatch is real. You see, it's not effective. But you lay out a whole program and saying, you know, we think this worldview can supplant your worldview. We're in a ball game. We're in line selecting equipment. We're getting ready to go out on the field and play. We're no longer a dysfunctional, squabbling family. Let me close tonight by, again, thanking you all for being here and sitting through this. I hope it hasn't been too scandalous for you. I hope it hasn't been too upsetting for you. But I feel like it's time to put this kind of information forward to the family. And ask for what we used to have, like in my family council, when you really needed to talk something over serious. To have like a family council meeting where you get to air out some maybe radical opinions about, you know, who's carrying their weight and who isn't in the family and who's causing trouble and who isn't and all that. This is sort of the same thing. I think it's time for us, if we can, to rally around a larger idea, a larger view. It may not be my view. You may have others who will come before you and present their views, and you may choose that instead. But until we gather around some central theme that is larger than our own parochial interests at the moment, we are defeated. We have no chance to compete. But if we do this and we do it right, make some good decisions, pick some things we all can believe in, and get behind and promote, we can beat these guys. Because we've got right on our side. They think they're right, but they're wrong. People 300 years ago thought the earth was the center of the universe. They thought they were, but they weren't. People right now believe that we are the biological center of the universe. We're just as wrong today as they were then. And it will be proved. It will be shown. I may not be 100% right in everything that I've told you here today, but I'm a heck of a lot closer to the ultimate truth than anybody out there on the other side right now. I'm sure of it. And I hope that at least some of you will agree. Thank you.
You shall not